Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, I thank the Honourable Opposition Leader for his question. Mr. Speaker, the Pacific Islands Forum Leaders meeting in Tuvalu 3 weeks ago was a highly significant and, if I can say, symbolic event taking place against the background of some critical challenges for Fiji and our island neighbors, especially in climate change. As the honourable members will be aware, my attendance at this year's PIF was my first ever. And I went to Tuvalu with high hopes of transformation in the way these meetings have been conducted in the past, and especially in the attitude towards the island nations of our larger neighbors in our perimeter, Australia and New Zealand, who historically have leveraged the PIF to wield undue influence in the region. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, in my first speech in Tuvalu, I specifically made reference to a more positive engagement with us by Australia and New Zealand in recent times. I spoke of a new era where both nations have shown commitment to re-engage with Fiji in a more respectful and inclusive way. I welcome the newfound spirit of regional cooperation, and I thank both Prime Minister Scott Morrison and Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern for their personal effort to improve the relationship with Fiji and the other island nations. And I spoke of the shared values, the geography and history that bind our countries and our citizens together. Mr. Speaker, sir, that was the spirit in which I went to Tuvalu. As you know, one of the 3 nations in our region, along with Kiribati and the Marshall Islands, that face an existential threat from climate change. And where 3 months ago, the United Nations Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, highlighted the threat in dramatic fashion. You will all recall the Time magazine in the rising waters in Tuvalu. The Time magazine cover photo of the Secretary General standing in the rising waters of waters in Tuvalu in a suit, which is one of the great images of our age. As we also know, Mr. Speaker, the Secretary General has convened the Global Climate Action Summit in New York later in the month, and he has asked all 195 nations in the world to come to that gathering that plans to enhance their response to the climate threat. I'm proud to say that Fiji is rising to this challenge. In New York, we will be unveiling an enhanced NDC, our nationally determined contribution to reduce our own greenhouse gas emissions. We aren't waiting for others to take the lead in the climate fight. We intend to be on the front line ourselves, leading by example. More action, more ambition, even though our own emissions amount to a tiny 0.04% of the world's total. Mr. Speaker, sir, I went to the PIF hoping that all our members would share the same determination to play their part in the climate struggle. On the issue of more ambition and more urgency, my fellow island leaders and I were as one in recognizing the threat that the rising seas, extreme weather events, and changes to agriculture and fisheries pose to the welfare of our people and our economy. My friend, the Tongan Prime Minister, Pohiva, made the journey to Tuvalu, despite his own serious health challenges, because he knew how important this opportunity was for the climate campaign in our region. We also very much appreciated the support we received in Funafuti from New Zealand, and especially Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is no secret that we did not find common ground with Australia. Indeed, there was a great deal of acrimony behind the scenes, some of which split into a public arena. Put simply, there is a considerable gap in approach and perspective between our Australian friends and those of us in the islands about the urgent need to phase out fossil fuels and coal in particular. For Australia, coal remains a major energy source, a critical part of its economy and a driver of export revenue. It brings jobs and supports the welfare of communities in coal-producing areas of Australia. We understand that, and I made that as part of my statement the first day of the meeting. But we also know that coal remains a major source of global greenhouse gas emissions, for which there are no alternatives. And as such, we are pleading with Australia to have it phased out as a matter of urgency if we are to have any hope of limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees above the pre-industrial age. We are asking Australia to speed up its transition out of coal and accelerate its investment in clean energy, an area in which it can lead the world and help halt the rise in greenhouse gas emissions. Mr. Speaker, sir, some strong things have been said that were highlighted, but I don't want to say anything more before I have an opportunity to sit down face-to-face with Prime Minister Morrison when I visit Canberra at the end of next week. It will be my first official visit to Australia, and I want it to take place in an atmosphere of friendly engagement. Because whatever our differences, Honourable Speaker, on climate change, we have far too many things in common, and we have been friends for too long to allow any lasting damage to our relationship. The new regional partnership we have struck with Australia is called the Tuvalu Partnership, the Fijian word for living under the same roof. My own view is that people in the same household are entitled to speak their minds when differences emerge between them. If I can also embrace an Australian term, the Aussies are our mates, and mates can be frank with each other without causing lasting offence. And I can certainly assure the House that I will be seeking common ground on the climate issue during my Australian visit, as well as celebrating the wonderful relationship Fijians have with the Australian people. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
Thank you.